Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. I just want to thank all our fans and listeners. We really appreciate all support. And tonight we have another awesome interview for you guys. We are joined today by a fairly newcomer to the business who has hit the ground running with projects like Flower and now Don't Tell a Soul, which features Finn Whitehead, Mina Savari, Jack Grazer, and Rainn Wilson. We are referring to writer and director Alex McAulay. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Oh yeah, we're excited too, man. Can you just tell us? Let's kick this off. Just tell us firstly what got you into this business.
Well, I started out, I always wanted to make movies growing up. I grew up in Texas and Ohio and wanted to make movies, but I didn't know how to begin that process or start doing it. So I started getting really into music and writing and all the things that were more affordable to do than make films. And then I wrote a book called Bad Girls that was kind of like a female Lord of the Flies, like a thriller horror. And it got published, and a studio ended up picking up the rights to it, and they never made it into a movie. It was Paramount, but they had like big plans, and that didn't happen. But they brought me out to LA, and then at that point, once I was out in Los Angeles, I was like, oh, I got to work on figuring out how to make movies. So then I started writing screenplays, and I wrote this movie called Flower that was a comedy, but definitely some dark and weird elements in it. And there's a murder. And then off of that, I just had written a bunch of scripts, and then this script, Don't Tell a Soul, was one that people really liked, and so I just got together. One of my friends, Chris Mangano, is the producer out here, and he knew somebody who was funding indie movies, who became our other producer, Mary Kay Poe in Kentucky, and then we just made this thing. It was a true labor of love in terms of low budget filmmaking.
Yeah, we actually, ladies and gentlemen, we actually got a little bit of a screener on of this movie, and listen, it's amazing. Like it's great. Everybody's going to really love this, I think, when it comes out. Um, can you tell us a little bit about the movie? Don't Tell Us All.
Yeah, so the premise is pretty straightforward. It's something that was based on stories that I heard when I was growing up in Texas. So it's these two brothers, a younger one and an older one. The younger one is sweet natured. The older one is pretty much a jerk. And they end up robbing a house that has been tented for termites because they know there's some money in it. And on their way out, they're spotted by a security guard played by Rainn Wilson, and he's chasing them, and he falls in an old well or a cistern, and he gets trapped. So it becomes like a moral dilemma for the kids. The younger one wants to obviously do the same thing and get the police and help this guy. And the older one doesn't because he knows the guard could report them and then they'd be busted for stealing. So where the movie goes from there, there are some big twists. It gets really dark. I think of it as sort of like an emotional, moral horror movie. Not so much on the gore front, but just in terms of how the brothers spiral out of control and what ends up happening to them and to Rainn Wilson's character in the whole. It also has an actress I love, Mina Suvari, who was so great in American Beauty and American Pie. And she plays the mom of the boys, and she's kind of a sad and wretched character, or at least appears to be. So putting her in a horror movie context was a lot of fun. So yeah, that's a basic setup. There's some crazy twists. So I don't want to give that part away.
Right. Yeah, don't do that.
But yeah, it's a bit of a wild ride. I would put it that way.
So this being your first feature film, I mean, is there anything that you learned, maybe a lesson or anything that you will carry with you moving forward in your career?
I mean, I had a blast making it. In terms of what I learned, I think, time, speed is of the essence. Like I mean, we made this movie in 17, 18 days, and these were really long. I mean, most of the movie takes place outside, and we shot it right before Christmas outside Louisville. So it was pretty cold, and we got snowed on and rained on, and just being able to make each day in terms of how much we filmed that part was tough, and we did it. We pulled it off. We had a great crew that was mostly local people from that area who were just big movie fans. So I think that, and preparation too. I mean, I felt well prepared going into it, but halfway through, I was like, wow, the more preparation, the better, just to
Right.
get it done and make something cool.
Alex, Don't Tell a Soul has a pretty seasoned cast of actors and actresses. Can you tell us what it was like, or if anything stood out working with some of these people?
Yeah, I mean, they were all, I feel like I got so lucky with all of them. Like, so I talked a little bit about Mina, who's amazing to work with and just incredible. And then the guys as well. I mean, the two guys, the two actors playing the kids. So one, Jack Dylan Grazer, is he actually has a show on HBO now called We Are Who We Are, and he's one of the kids in It and
Right.
sequel, and he's also in Shazam, and so he is like the most talented kid ever. He was 15 when I worked with him, and he's just like a little brilliant acting genius.
Right.
Like, it's wild to see that. When I was 15, I was like, really basic as a human, and so he was
Right.
he was just evolved, in this great way. And then Finn Whitehead, who plays his older brother, was in Dunkirk and Black Mirror Bandersnatch. He's the main guy in that, and in this, he obviously plays an American, and he kind of like bulked up for the role, to be more menacing. And he's incredible too. I mean, he's just like an amazing actor. Like, you just look at a script and it would be memorized. And he brought a real sense of authority and menace to the role. And in real life, he's like the nicest, most cool guy to like hang out with and talk to. And in the movie, he's so pretty scary and intimidating. And then the guys look alike too, which I really got lucky on. And then of course Rainn Wilson is amazing. Like, I'm a
Right.
big fan of The Office and Dwight. And like I said, before I think we started recording, I know of him from House of a Thousand Corpses, and which he loved making. I asked him all my nerdy questions about working with Rob Zombie. I'm a huge Rob Zombie fan, so
Right. Me too.
and like, yeah, so Rainn was amazing, and Rainn brought like all his both his comic abilities and dramatic chops to it, and was really like, he's really inspiring too, because he's really pretty famous, and was the most down to earth, like, humble guy who would just also, he had to get in this hole. He spends a lot of the movie in a hole in the ground, and so it was not a pleasant shoot because it's really muddy and rainy and dirty
Right.
and crazy. And so he was just down for everything. I mean, he loved the process, and that was great to see and experience.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, is there anything you found to be like most challenging about making this film? I mean, did COVID play any part of any challenges you may had?
Well, we got lucky on the COVID front. We made it before COVID hit. I think
Oh,
it would
okay,
have been
great.
tough. Yeah, I think it would have been a lot tougher to make during the COVID era. I think the biggest challenge that I walked into was the weather situation, because I grew up an hour and a half away from where we shot this. I went to high school in Dayton, Ohio, and so this is on the other side of the river. And so I knew the area well, and I knew that winters can be rough there, but I hadn't really appreciated how spending the whole day outside could be really brutal. And so there were
Right.
some shots that I really wanted to get, where we're looking up out of the well. And it was always challenging because some days it would rain part of the day, it would snow, it would sleet, and everyone's out there standing around freezing too. So it's hard. It's a hard environment, to keep forging ahead. And it worked out great at the end. Like, when we needed it to stop snowing, it finally did. But I think weather was definitely, for everyone on that shoot, the biggest challenge by far. We all had like hand warmers, and like we're wearing like 5 layers of clothes, and like we all got wet. We'd be like soaking wet at the end of the day from being in the mud and everything.
Oh man, yeah. Oh yeah, I could tell y'all were cold in this movie. Alex, you're a writer and director. Is there anything that stood out as the most different between the two processes? And do you prefer one over the other, or do you
Yeah,
like them both equal?
I love them both. Directing's more fun because it's just involved. Like, writing for me is I love writing, but it's just me sitting at a computer in my room, and it can be solitary and kind of lonely. With directing, it's like a bunch of friends, a lot of cool people or interesting people
Right.
hanging around. It's a lot more action oriented. So and being outside is fun. I'm not kind of chained to my computer as much. So I mean, that to me was definitely more fun, I would say, of the two processes.
So, what's the most challenging? I'm trying. And when I'm asking some questions, I'm trying, since I've seen the movie, trying to not delve into spoiler territory for sure. But so speaking of that, what's the most challenging part about doing, like this press for a film with so many twists, turns, and spoilers? I mean, is there a level of secrecy on set that you have to keep, or is that anything different about that?
I think on set we were pretty open. Everyone kind of had the full script and knew what they were getting into. In terms of the movie's release, like I think the main thing was just like the trailer, like the Saban and Lionsgate who putting the movie out did a great job with the trailer. They didn't reveal like the big twist.
Right.
Because I think that was my worry. I was like, oh no, what if they reveal this twist in the trailer? No one's
Hey,
gonna see
hey,
it.
not to interrupt you, but which twist? I watched it. There was a bunch of them. I felt like I was watching a Saw movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And that final act, there's it goes, in a wild direction. But I'm thinking like there's one big moment that comes kind of at the end of the second act, and so I was afraid they have a lot of footage of that. But luckily they didn't, and reviews have been pretty good too about not spoiling or revealing how it plays out. So I think definitely. I mean, I love movies with twists. I'm a big fan of like anything from Hitchcock to I guess the good M. Night Shyamalan movies. Like, no, it's hit or miss for sure at this point with him. But it's like the good ones are good, and so I love a crazy twist that I never saw coming.
Did you have anything that stood out as like your favorite part of making Don't Tell a Soul?
I think like some of the parts I really loved were watching the actors just unleash their talent and skill. So there'd be like the amazing interactions between um, Jack Dylan Grazer and Finn Whitehead, where they kind of like became brothers almost in real life over the course of the shoot. Because Finn's old, Finn's like probably 6 years older than him, and so they really bonded. He kind of took Jack under his wing, and Jack is super sweet natured guy too. So that was really fun to witness that. But just their interactions on screen, it'd be funny when on screen they're like beating the crap out of each other, and then when I call cut, they'd go back to being like really good friends and just hang out. So it's wild to see how quickly they could transition from their characters back to normal life.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure you can speak to this, but some of the best movies have, a personal touch to them, and you can really tell that you put a lot of your heart and soul into this one, for sure. The movie seems personal to you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, and thanks. Yeah, I mean, definitely it was a labor of love, and I mean, it was inspired a lot by my experiences growing up and stuff I had seen. So like kids robbing houses that had been tenanted for termites, or someone getting stuck somewhere and not being able to get out. These are all sort of real life things and stories that were floating around. And the relationship between the brothers was, my dad growing up had a older brother who was kind of a hellraiser, and they had a really complicated relationship. So as a kid, I got to witness that, and then I used parts of that in the story where it's kind of like, so I guess my dad would be like the younger, sweet-natured brother in this story, but definitely drew on my life and just the environments too, like that coal plant and some of the neighborhoods that I don't really see on screen very much, but growing up, that was definitely like what the world looked like, and still looks. I mean, nothing really changed there from when I went. I mean, I went to high school in the '90s, and it still looks the same as it did back then. Some places just don't change, so for
Right.
better and worse. So yeah, so that was interesting for me to go back there. I hadn't been back in a while, so it was fun to go back and to get it on screen.
So, all right, Alex, we only have one more question for you about what your future plans are, but I just want to give my quick thoughts real quick on this movie, and I won't spoil anything. Um, I'm not sure what your interpretation of the movie is. You can tell me if you want to, but I really felt like this was a relationship movie between the family members and Joey. I felt like he had something missing in him that he found with Hamby. Uh, Very powerful movie from a family relationship standpoint, because I'm kind of not in the same situation per se, but I have a little brother, just me and him, and we were with a single mother, so I related to that, and it was very powerful in I guess you can say the end of the second act you were talking about when I mean, Alex, you know what I'm talking about, the powerful moment in the house.
Oh yeah.
Very, very touching. I can kind of understand where the older brother is coming from. You know, he feels like he has the burden of the family on him. Uh, the little brother looking for something in Hamby, I love that as well. And I can't help but not think of Silence of the Lambs, watching him at the bottom of the well. It's
Oh,
not as demented, but you have to get that feeling, I think.
oh yeah.
What can I ask you what your interpretation of the movie was? Because I felt like it was a family relationship movie, honestly. That
Oh,
all came full circle, kind of.
definitely so. I mean, I grew up really, watching a lot of the classic because I always loved horror, Sam Raimi, like early Sam Raimi, but I also loved and watched like a lot of the Spielberg movies of that era. So it's like, or even like, I mean, I guess who knows what role Spielberg played in it, but Toby Hooper's
Right.
like Poltergeist, where it's like where all these crazy things are happening, but it's still centered around an emotional core and a family that's in crisis. So I felt that way very much with the movie. It's like when Hamby turns up, he's like a potential surrogate father for Joey, and he's someone Joey can bond with and latch onto. And then because of things that have gone on in Hamby's life, there's maybe reasons why he's drawn to making a bond with Joey and trying to do something good. And so I felt that way too. I'm always drawn to families, I guess, also just from my own life, like families that are either troubled or in some kind of crisis state, and seeing how that plays out, and seeing how everyone is always searching for some way to bond with other people and make their life better. So absolutely, like I agree. I mean, that's a big core theme that runs through the whole movie.
Yeah, I really liked it, man. It was a powerful, and you shot the movie great too. It was a powerful movie. I really liked it, and and just referring to a question we did earlier, the cast helps it a lot too because I mean, obviously, if you're a fan of certain actors or actresses and they're in the movie, you know, it gives you a connection because you're a fan of them. But what's up next for you, Alex? What else do you have coming up on the docket besides "Don't Tell Us All"?
Well, I'm working on a couple. I always have a bunch of scripts and ideas going because it's hard to know what. Sometimes I think I have something amazing, and then it's hard to get anyone interested in it. And other times it's like I have something a little more offbeat that people like. So I've mainly been trying to get a TV show off the ground about bank robbers. It's kind of like a family of bank robbers, and there's a few big twists in that. So I'm a big fan of like crime movies and thrillers and just really gritty stuff. And like I always used to. I guess it's always sort of a fantasy too. I'm always like, yeah. I mean, I know it's not cool in any way, shape, or form to rob banks, but there's still something alluring about that,
Oh yeah.
like that renegade lifestyle, I guess. So it's like, so that's mainly where my energy's been going. I have um, another few sort of horror scripts I'm working on, and potentially adapting one. I wrote this other YA novel called Oblivion Road. That's about a bunch of convicts who encounter a bunch of high school kids who are on this field trip, and they sort of match wits with each other. So it's thinking about going back to that as a core idea and making something really cool out of that. But yeah, so I'm hoping that the response to Don't Tell a Soul, allows me to direct more movies too. I mean, that'd be great.
And before we let you go, I just wanted to say another movie this movie kind of made me think about was Good Night Mommy. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but it's about two young boys and their kind of disabled mother. So it made me think of a lot of movies I like. So that was a good thing, Alex.
Oh, that's great. I have not seen that one. I gotta check that out for sure.
If you want to talk about some darkness, that's a dark one. We
I
just
love.
want if we
I
just
love.
want to thank you for coming on the show, man. Can you tell us again where the audience can find Don't Tell a Soul
Yeah,
if they want to check it out?
don't. Yeah, Don't Tell a Soul is in theaters right now in about 50 cities. It's in about 100 theaters. Also, it is on, and probably the easiest way to find it. It's on all the video on demand platforms, so iTunes, Vudu, all of those, Amazon. So pretty much, if you have a computer, you can find your way to watching it. And if you live in a place where theaters are open, definitely. I mean, I love seeing movies on the big screen. I'm in California where I can't do that right now. But if you can, and it's playing at some drive-in movie theaters too, which is amazing because I grew up with those in Texas, and so yeah, it's out there, and yeah, I hope that people see it and dig it.
Oh yeah, I highly recommend it to everyone who's
Absolutely.
listening to get to check this movie out. It's got an awesome cast, it's got an awesome setting, cinematography, and it's got a powerful message, especially if you have some family stuff going on. It's very powerful. Hey man, thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you both. Thank you for having me on, and I really appreciate it too. And yeah, I'm gonna check that. What was that movie called? I'm gonna check it out.
Good night, mommy.
Good night, mommy. Okay, sweet. Okay, thanks, guys.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you. Hey, before you head out, do you mind maybe doing like a little intro for the episode? Just, hey, this is Alex McAulay. Don't tell a soul. You're listening to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast. Would you mind doing that?
No, that sounds great. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. So, okay, cool. Hi, this is Alex McAulay, the writer and director of Don't Tell a Soul, and you're listening to the Don't Go Out There podcast.
Thank you so much, man.
That was perfect.
Okay, awesome. Guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That was super fun.
Yeah,
Hey,
absolutely.
man,
Hopefully we'll talk to you again.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk soon. No, I'm gonna see if I can wrangle up Rainn Wilson and Jack Grazer.
Yeah, please do. We would love to have.
I would drop anything I have to do that interview. So fear not.
I bet Rainn would probably be stoked to do. I mean, I told him I was coming on. He's excited about it. So awesome, guys. Let's talk soon.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Be safe out there, man.
Thanks. You too. Both of you. Take care.